Hi, it's Sandy, and today I'm filming the book recommendations tag created by Steph at Steph Borer. Don't know if I'm pronouncing that right because me and pronunciation, not good. There are 15 questions here from Steph and an additional 5 questions from Larissa from Larry Reads, who I will tag both down below. But this is basically 20 questions about some book recommendations. I have my books in here that I'm going to recommend. I've had to pull a table out to help me with this because there are so many, and I'm just going to dive right into the questions. So I've got the questions up on my computer. As always, I'll be looking over there for the questions because I can't remember them. Question 1 is a book you tell people is your favourite, and don't know if it'll surprise people or not, but I'm going to use The Martian for this. The Martian is just one of my favourite books of all time, and it is just, I can't tell you how much I love this book. It is amazing and everyone should read it because Mark Watney is just the GOAT. This is a sci-fi about a Martian mission that goes wrong. Mark Watney is one of the crew who is accidentally left on Mars, and he has to, figure out a way to survive. There's a movie with Matt Damon, who you can see on this here, and it's just, I've not come across anybody that's not loved this book. Number 2 is a book that is your guilty pleasure. Now I always say I don't have guilty pleasures because I don't feel guilty about what I like. Like, I don't have that, I don't feel embarrassed or guilty about what I like. So I don't really have any guilty pleasures. But when I googled guilty pleasure, it was something that you like. The definition was like something that you like that is not held in high regard. So I'm going to go with like something that I like that is actually quite unpopular for guilty pleasure, if that makes sense. That's the only way I can think of it. So for that, I've gone for Stalking Jack the Ripper. I actually really like this series. There's 4 books and I love them. I think they're fantastic. I think Karen Maniscalco has done an amazing job here. And yeah, I don't know many people who like this as much as me. So clearly it's just something that hits right with me and not necessarily others. Stalking Jack the Ripper is about Aubrey Rose, who is a mixed race girl who lives in London and wants to be a forensic pathologist basically, and there's barriers because she's half Indian, half white and a woman, but her uncle is a pathologist, so he sort of takes her on with his other apprentice Thomas, who is just, I love Thomas, and they do sort of like cover historical things. So obviously the first one is Jack the Ripper, and then it goes on to Dracula, Houdini and Capturing the Devil, which is about the World's Fair. And I just, like I say, I really like them. Question 3 is a book everyone loved but you didn't. This is, I can't think of anything that everybody was like mad about that I was like, I hate this. So I've gone for a kind of more subtle one, and that's The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. This is a book that I've seen nothing but good things. People who read this love this. And I just, it was longer than it needed to be. The writing was far too flowery. It was just, overall, it was fine. I just didn't like it. It wasn't for me. I would reread it and hopefully I'd like it the second reread because that tends to happen with me, but it just felt a bit like a letdown, which is a shame because it's a good premise. This is about 2 magicians who take on apprentices, and these apprentices have got to battle, like, don't know if they're like to battle to the death until one of them wins. And it's all set behind this circus, which is the Night Circus, which arrives and disappears without warning, and there's also other people that get involved in it, and I like that better than I like the magician's story. So, it's me. Number 4 is a book you read the fastest. I'm actually going to go with The Hunger Games for this because I had surgery on my, not on my spine, but like I had an abscess on my spine, so I had to get the abscess removed from my spine, and I had gone to that surgery, and afterwards, I don't know what it is about anesthesia, but when I wake up from anesthesia, I cannot sleep. Like, I am awake. I am awake for like longer than you should be awake. I don't know what it is about it. I don't know if it's because like my body's like slept enough, But I read the entirety of the Hunger Games in less than 24 hours, just like back to back to back, while having like naps in between when I did eventually get really tired because the painkillers I was on was like top notch, but I just sped through this. Hunger Games, if you've been living under a rock, is about Katniss Everdeen, who lives in Panem, which is basically America, post-apocalyptic America, dystopian, utopian. And there is a capital and 12 districts. There used to be 13, but 13th district was destroyed and in the war. And after the war, the capital decided that as punishment for this and to stop another uprising, they would take 2 children, a female and a male, from each district, 1 to 12, to fight in the Hunger Games. So they put them in this arena, and it's all like really, really techy. And they put them in this arena and make it like Big Brother, where everybody watches them all of the time, and they have to fight to the death. It is based off of Battle Royale, and the sheer psychology of what Suzanne Collins does in this just hooks me right in. Question 5 is a book that deserves more hype. For this, I'm going to go with Who's Afraid and this entire series here. It's called the Supernatural Sisters series, and I cannot tell you how much I love this series. This is an Own Voices based on a character called Tommy Grayson, who is half Kiwi, half Scottish, basically, and she is the best character. She's got this dry Scottish banter. Like, I cannot believe that Maria Lewis hasn't been living in Scotland for years. The first book is set in Dundee, and as someone who lived in Dundee, I think she's done a fantastic job. I love Tommy, I love the other characters, I love the fact that she is not scared to be brutal, and I just think these books have not had enough hype. Like, where are all the reviews? I think most of them have under 100 reviews on Goodreads, which is criminal. Can I just say? Absolutely criminal. Like, this story has so much rep in it. Like, she went hard. And just to make it plain, this author, who also makes movies in Australia, she lives in Australia, she has been having such a hard time getting this to screen. She wants to make this into a movie, but she can't because she has it written into her contract that these characters are played by authentic actors. So she wants LGBT actors, she wants Indigenous and POC actors to play these characters. She wants characters from these backgrounds to play these characters. From the backgrounds to play the characters. And apparently that's too difficult for Hollywood and all the other people that make movies. So yeah, like, get on this. Get reading this. Get it into a movie and get her those LGBT, POC, Indigenous characters that we need to see on screens. Now, please. Question 6 is a book that is becoming a movie or TV show. And for this, I've gone for Percy Jackson and the Olympians. This is getting a TV series on Disney. It will be out in January, which I am so unbelievably excited for. There was a movie of The Lightning Thief and the Sea of Monsters that we don't talk about. Only thing I liked about those were the casting. I thought the casting was done really, really well. Other than that, they should have listened to Uncle Rick. But Percy Jackson is about Greek demigods. So Percy is a son of Poseidon, and he is taken to Camp Half-Blood, where the Greek demigods stay for summer camp. Some of them live a year round, some of them don't. And his adventures and quests, and there's so much Greek mythology that it's drawn on, and this idea of sort of cyclical history, because Percy and his friends are fighting these monsters that have been fought in Greek history. Medusa, the Minotaur, the Labyrinth, like so many things that happen in Greek history. And I just love Percy Jackson so much. Question 7 is a book that you reread the most. I did go back and forward on a few of my books for this, but I've decided to say Discovery of Witches. I used to do like a yearly reread. It's probably not reread as much as Heartstopper or The Martian, but it's definitely one of those books where I like reread the entire series a lot. Like, I will sit down and read this entire series, and I will love it every time. Like, I just love A Discovery of Witches. This is about a main character who is, I can't remember her name, that's ridiculous. This is about Diana, who is a witch, but she doesn't want to be a witch, and she kind of pushes down her abilities despite the fact that her parents were both very powerful witches. And she is also a history professor at Oxford, or PhD, or researcher, and professor at Harvard, or is it Cambridge? I can't remember. I think it's Harvard. Oxford. I know she's in Oxford, but she's not there to work. She's there to do research. Like, she's in Oxford to do research, not to work, because they have manuscript that she needs. And one day she pulls manuscript that has been missing for hundreds of years out of the library, and it sort of calls out to the other creatures. So in this world there are 3 creatures: witches, demons and vampires, and they're not meant to mingle, they are meant to sort of coalesce together, except in their own types, because they don't want them mixing, the council don't want them mixing, and the more that are together, the more obvious they are to humans. But Diana and Matthew, who is an old vampire, end up falling in love, and there's also this mystery element going on with this manuscript, and I just love it so much. Number 8 is a book from a genre you don't typically read, and for that I've gone for The Girl with All the Gifts by MC Carey. This is a horror novel, and it is the only horror novel I've been able to read without being genuinely terrified, although this is like genuinely terrifying. It's just, I can put my science hat on and it doesn't. It's so good. This is a zombie novel. That's pretty much, if you've seen the movie, you know this is a zombie novel. So this is a world where a pathogenic fungus has taken over, I think like The Last of Us, and it has taken over and has infected people, and there's small pockets of humanity that have survived, and part of this is a science sort of centre that do experiments and stuff, and they have found these children who seem to have the same zombie-ness about them, like they want to eat humans, but they don't have the mindless side of it, so they appear human, they look normal, they don't have like the whole zombie thing going on. They can speak and reason and be taught and feel, and yet they still want to eat humans, so they don't understand, so they're experimenting on them. And this is about one of the girls and the teacher, and this kind of, not quest that they go on, but this, they have to escape and try and find safety, and it's just so good while still being very much a horror. Question 9 is a book that deserves all the hype it gets, and there was only one book I could pick up for this. I'm sorry to the rest, but that is Babel by R.F. Kuang. No book, I can't think of another book that has deserved the amount of hype that this book deserves, because oh my god, this book is so well written. The discussion about etymology, the discussion about race, about colonialism, about just, there's the amount that is packed in this book, while still being an excellent story, is unparalleled in my opinion. This book is fantastic. It's set in a historical background and also with a slight fantastical twist where magic's used for silver, and it's about Babel, about this part of the Oxford University, and it's a translation part of it, but they use silver working, so they put magic into the silver to make motorized things go. It's kind of in place of like the Industrial Revolution, they use silver instead, and they use translation as a way to work it. So on one side you put the English word, for example, and then the other side put a word in the same word in a different language, and the further apart the correct definition is. So you know how there's some words in some languages that don't translate directly, but they mean the same thing. The further apart they are, the stronger the metal, the stronger the silver. And this professor is basically, our main character Robin has been taken from Canton by this professor who raises him and looks after him until he can be put into Babel, and he's basically using these kids like under the guise of education to make money. And there's nothing that can describe this book unless you read it. If you're a historical fiction fan, read it. If you're an etymology fan, read it. If you I just love this book so much. Question 10 is a book you usually recommend when asked to give a recommendation. I wasn't sure what to do with this question, so I went for like a general, what's a recommendation that I could give that I feel that anybody of any reading style, any reading taste, any reading level could pick up and still enjoy. And it's a general like blanket recommendation. I don't think there's anybody that would dislike this book. That is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. This is cozy fantasy down to a T. This is about Viv, who is an orc and she is a mercenary, and she has been saving up her money because she just wants to have a quiet life and she wants to open a coffee shop in this little town that she's scoped out. And this is about her finding her building and renovating and starting a coffee shop and hiring help and introducing these people to coffee because they don't know what coffee is. Introducing them to coffee and these other tasty snacks like, you know, biscuits, and it's just so heartwarming, and it's so low stakes. Like, it's that kind of fantasy world where you're like, something's going to happen. It's not. You're fine. It's just relax. It's fine. It's just a good time. We're all fine. It's all good. I love it. It's just the best thing I've ever done is listen to Sarah when she said to read this book, because she was absolutely right. The best thing I ever did was listen to Lisa when she said read this book, because she is absolutely right. It is just, it's for everybody. It is fantasy. I don't read fantasy. This is high fantasy, like orcs and elves and dwarves and ratkins and, you know, medieval style fantasy world, but it's so easy to read that it doesn't get overwhelming for someone who's not a fantasy reader, and I love that so much. It's just, I could smell the coffee. Like, I could imagine I was sitting in Viv's coffee shop and reading a book, and it was just amazing. Next question, question 11, is a book that has your favourite characters, and I cannot be me and continually go on about this author and her character work without saying Lynsay Sands for her Arjunu series. This series, each book is a different romance, so it's about each character finding their life mate, finding the one person they can be happy with. There's a whole scoosh behind it. I'm not going to give you the whole spiel, but basically it is like sci-fi, paranormal, Atlantean, nanobot having vampires, and it is romance. It is slightly smutty, and this is about these people coming together, and I love it. Her character work is unparalleled. Each book is a different couple, but the others kind of come and weave into it, so you see these characters from so many different perspectives and see how they behave with their friends, with their significant other, with their parents, with, you know, on their own. You get such a deep dive into these people because you get them from their own perspective and then so many other people's perspectives. Sorry, but she is unparalleled in her character work, in my opinion, and you will have to rest these books from my cold dead hands. Number 12 is a book you wish you could live in. And for this, I think some people are going to be surprised, actually, when I say the world of Narnia. And I don't mean World War II Britain, I mean Narnia. I would love to live in Narnia. It just, there's something about it that just, it's always been like a safe space in my imagination. I know that I can always go back to Narnia and I'll always find love and acceptance and, you know, just a home. And I know there's a lot of controversy when it comes to Narnia, but this was one of my favourite childhood books. As you can see, these are really old. These are like some of my oldest copies of Narnia, and I would love to live in Narnia. I would absolutely adore to live in Narnia because it just seems like such a lovely fantasy world. Narnia, if you don't know, is a world through the wardrobe. Basically, there's a whole 7-book series. As you can see, they're really, really short. It is, I suppose, an allegory for Christianity and God, and I didn't realise that until I was much, much older and somebody pointed it out, and I was like, oh yeah. But that's because I didn't really know anything about Christianity. I didn't know the Bible or anything like that. So it is an allegory for heaven, but it's such a dynamic world, in my opinion. I just love it so much. I can't really sum up this world, but if you don't know about it, I'd be genuinely surprised. And now we get to the question where everybody can laugh at me. Question 13, a book you thought you would hate, but ended up loving. So here's Heartstopper, my annotated paperback edition. Here's Heartstopper, my special edition from Waterstones. Here's Heartstopper, the Netflix tie-in edition. And here's Heartstopper, the hardback special edition. My friends will not let me live this down. I went in, I had heard about Heartstopper. I'd heard about people talking about Heartstopper and going on about it because it was on Webtoons and it was just before it had been released, and there was the hype because the TV show was being released, and it was probably after this was released then, but before the TV show was being released, and there was this massive hype about it, and I was like, look, I don't do graphic novels or comics or anything like that. I tried manga, I tried comics, I did not like them. So I was like, there's no way I'm gonna like this, and I had started reading this in the bookshop, I got to page 36 in the bookshop, or 35, and I was like, no, I'm not a fan. Like, I don't like it. And then before the TV show came out, like, my friends were just like, fair enough, you're not gonna like it, like, whatever. I was adamant I wasn't gonna like this. And then before the TV show came out, I was like, do you know what, I'm gonna read the webtoon. So I pulled up the webtoon on the day that Heartstopper, the TV show, came out. I pulled up webtoons on my tablet and I sat down to try Heartstopper, and a few hours later I finished the entire thing. All of it. Everything that was on webtoon, I finished it, and I was like, I need to go buy these books. So I got up, got dressed, went to Waterstones, got the paperback editions of 1 to 4, came home, read the paperback editions, put on the TV show on Netflix, watched the entire thing, and then reread these again because I love Heartstopper. I ended up getting a Heartstopper tattoo because I love Heartstopper. It's been about a year now since I first discovered Heartstopper. It's been just over a year since I discovered Heartstopper, and I cannot tell you how much I love Heartstopper. Like, this entire shelf is going to be a Heartstopper shelf because I will get every edition. I don't have the Fairyloot editions because I couldn't afford them at the time, and I now certainly can't afford them at the prices that people are selling them at. But the Fairyloot editions are the only editions I don't have. I have the paperback, I have the special edition, like I said, special edition Waterstones paperback, special edition Waterstones hardback, and the Netflix tie-in. And if they continue to release all of them in that, I will get all of them in that because I love Heartstopper. I am personally bankrolling Alice Oseman at this point. The next question is a book that made you cry, and because it made me cry when I was filming another tag earlier on, I had to go with Codename Verity. This is a World War II historical fiction about female pilots and female spies during World War II, and it is heartbreaking. It is about Verity, or Queenie, or I can't remember her actual name, who is Julie, that's it, who has been captured in France as a spy and has been interrogated, and she ends up telling the story of Maddie, who is a female pilot in the Women's Air Force Auxiliary, and telling the story of these women that flew planes into war zones with no ammunition and no firepower and no permission to engage. And it just, you can tell that Elizabeth Wine is an historian and also that she loves to fly, because she's done, there are four other books in there. So there's Codename Verity, Rose Under Fire, The Enigma Game, and The Pearl Thief, which are all same characters, like following the same characters, just at different points in time. And the end of this book breaks my heart. I can't even think about it without tearing up. The end of this book breaks my heart. I can't even think about it without tearing up. So that's all I'm going to say about it, and I'm going to put it down. The next question is question 15, a book you wish you could read for the first time. I have to say Divergent, because I remember going into a bookshop and being like, I want to read something and I need you to recommend me something. But the feeling I get is I want that feeling when I read Divergent for the first time, the feeling when I read The Hunger Games for the first time, the feeling I got reading Young Adult Dystopian for the first time. That is what I want. And they recommended a book that I then DNF'd, unhauled, and now there is a TV show coming out. It's Silo is what's coming out. But Divergent, the first time I read it, blew me away. I loved it, and I wish I could get that feeling again. The feeling of the first time that I read it. It might be slightly different if I reread it again, because it's been a while since I've reread it. But yeah, the first time I read it, it just hit just some kind of nerve. This is a world in which there are factions in this, post-apocalyptic utopia again. So there are 5 factions. There are Amity, Dauntless, Erudite, Candor, and Abnegation. And each of these 5 factions kind of has like a thing with it. So like Amity is like the hippie, happy-go-lucky, they grow the food and things like that. And they all like sing Kumbaya around the campfire. Dauntless are the ones that are like warriors. They are risk takers. They are adrenaline junkies. That sort of people. Abnegation are the ones that are selfless. They are the ones that will do all the charity work. If someone needs a seat on the bus, they will stand up and give them the seat. Like, they are all about serving other people, not themselves. Erudite are all about knowledge. They want knowledge above all else. And candor is about truth. They believe things are black and white, true or false. That is it. And there are these people who are known as divergents, who have more than one of these traits, which obviously is like regular human beings. And it's very dangerous to be divergent in this world because they are looking for you to have one of the 5. And this is about Triss, who is due to go to her choosing ceremony. And that is where you go, you have a test. It tells you which of the factions your brain chemistry most goes with. So there's like different sort of choices you have to make in this test, and it will tell you, it's like a personality test, and it will tell you which one. If you come up divergent, you are sent away to be killed, basically. But when she comes up divergent, the person doing the test was like, just pretend it's no. Most people go with that test, but you can choose to join another faction. Like, you can choose freely. It is a free choice, but you have to like double down on being part of that faction. And obviously our main character is not just one thing, and I love it. Question 16 is a book that could cure a reading slump. I had a hard time with this because I wasn't really sure. It depends on the person. But for me, I'm going to say The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. And this is a book where nothing happens. This is a book where you're just with the characters in their ship as they travel to this other planet to make a bridge. And it's like watching... It's just... You're just watching it. There's nothing else happening. There's no big stakes, there's no wars, there's no sci-fi, like, big elements in it, although it is a sci-fi. It's just cosy and calm and lovely, and you learn about different species in this world, in this universe rather, and it's just lovely. It's just relaxing, and it's not stressful, and it's not, it's not action packed or anything like that. So for me, sometimes when you need like a brain cleanse for a slump, something like this is just perfect for that. Question 17 is a book you think everyone needs to read. For this, I immediately went for this book, and it is the first one that came to mind, and that is Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds, illustrated by Chris Priestley. And this is a beautiful, beautiful story told in verse. So this is about our main character whose brother has been shot and killed by a rival gang member, and in the kind of area in life that they lead, that they're stuck in, you don't tell the police, you don't go to the police, you don't report it or anything, you get even. You go and shot the person that shot your friend, and that's how it works. And this is about his brother so our main character gets in the lift to avenge his brother's death by shooting the guy that shot his brother. And on every floor that this lift goes down, another ghost enters the lift, and as he goes down, they kind of tell their story, and it's a look into gun violence in the US and the way it never ends, and nobody ever comes out on top. It's not glamorous, it's not, noble, it is just violence for violence sake. I read this and immediately reread it because it is incredible. This book is so important. It is one of the most important books I think you can read, especially if you are in a country where the gun laws are lax at best. We don't tend to have this problem here in Scotland. Like, we had one mass shooting at school years ago, and even, like, everybody said no, that's it, it's never going to happen again. And the government said, okay, it's never going to happen again, we will ban guns, and people all over the country handed in their guns happily because they knew that it was worth more to protect people than it was to be able to own a gun. And obviously there's a lot of discourse in America, and this perspective was just so beautiful. This boy who is stuck in this loop of violence being shown the effects of that violence in a very concentrated form. This is just absolutely phenomenal. I'm going to have to reread this now. It's just phenomenal. Please, if you do anything, read this. Pass on, share the message. It is so important right now to share messages like this. Question 18 is a book you think would make an amazing movie. I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I'm going to go with The Heroes of Olympus by Rick Riordan. So I know Percy Jackson is being made into a TV show, and I really hope they get to Heroes of Olympus. But the reason I'm saying this is because I am currently reading Heroes of Olympus. I've just finished Heroes of Olympus actually, and I'm reading The Sun and the Star. And I got to a bit in, I think it was I can't remember if it was The House of Hades or The Blood of Olympus, and I stopped and I turned to Kay and I was like, I've just read the most cinematic paragraph that I think I've ever read, and it was I don't remember what it was, but it was just like, oh yeah, I remember what it is, but I'm not going to tell you because it's spoilers. But it was so vividly written that I could see it, like I could hear the music, it was that proper like like style, like scene, and I was like, I can see this, and it would be absolutely just criminal if these don't end up getting made into TV series or movies. Like, just, the imagery is so fantastic, and I just, I want to see Festus. So we are on the penultimate question, which is 19, a book you wish everyone would give a shot, even if it's out of their comfort zone. And for that, I'm actually going to say A Dark Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. I am not a fantasy reader. I say that all the time. I like paranormal romances. I like some light fantasy. I don't really do high fantasy very well, but A Dark Shade of Magic, this is the collector's edition because I love A Darker Shade of Magic. It is by far, in my opinion, the best Schwab. Hands down. I love these characters. I love this world. This is about Kell, who is an Antari, which means he can travel to all 4 Londons. And by all 4 Londons, I mean there are 4 parallel universes back to back to back to back. And each of these Londons is different. So you've got Red London, which is full of magic and is thriving, and that's where Kell is from. You then have Grey London, which is our London, where George III is on the throne and he is mad and his regent is in charge, and there's no magic there. You have White London, where magic destroyed the place and people are drained of colour and drained of life and looking for magic in any way they can. It is a barren and terrifying place, and it's just, it seems like a proper hellscape. And then you got Black London, which was destroyed when magic took over. And when Black London was destroyed, the walls were closed, the doors were closed, and the only people who can now move from London to London are Antari, and they are very, very rare. There is only Kell and one other called Holland who come from White London, and they basically pass messages through from the kings to each king. And I love this. It is so, there's just something about these characters that I just love so much. The adventure, the arcs that we go through here, and just the characters. Lila Bard is one of my favourite characters of all time. So yeah, even if you're not a fantasy reader, I would absolutely give this a go. And the last question, you'll be happy to know we are there, and that is a book you'll never forget. Again, I really struggled with this because there are plenty of books that stick in my mind, but the one I've chosen because I really wanted to get this into a tag video is The Magicians by Lev Grossman. This is a adult Narnia, is how I always spin it. So this is about our main character, Quentin, who is surreptitiously put into this exam for a school that he doesn't know exists after high school, so it's like a college, university kind of thing. And he passes and gets into this school, which is in fact a magic school. So it is a magic school vibes, but there's also this story, this childhood story that he has of Fillory, which is a place that it's Narnia. Fillory is Narnia, but it's dark Narnia. Like, it is a very, very dark place, but it's Narnia. And Quentin decides that if magic is real, that he wants to find Fillory. And so you see him in a place where he is at this magic school, making friends, learning magic, dealing with all the sort of American collegey politics there. Like, they've got houses and stuff like that. It's just so good. And then, you know, trying to find Fillory, and then finding out that Fillory is not exactly what you thought it was. I love this. This is so dark. This is so gruesome. This is very much like on the trigger warning scale up here. But by God, do I love this trilogy. And I'm due for a reread, but I just, it's not for everyone. Please do check the trigger warnings because, dear God, there are some. But I don't know what it is, but the dark little part of my heart just loves this. So there you go. There are the 20 questions for the recommendation tag. As I said, I'll put everything down below and tag the creator and the additional creator questions. I'm not going to tag anybody because I'm terrible at knowing how to tag people. But actually, no, do you know what? I'm actually going to tag people for a change. I am going to tag Lisa, and I'm going to tag Becca, and that'll do for now because I don't want to pressure anybody to do them. But Lisa and Becca usually like doing tags. But if you want to do this tag, feel free to say I tagged you in this tag, and enjoy. But yeah, if you've read any of these books and want to chat about them, please do. Please chat to me. And thanks very much for watching. All my links will be down below, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!